Well, howdy, guys. Welcome back to the RedAss podcast. It's Monday, October 23rd. And, it started off pretty good today. I enjoyed a little bit of that cloud cover. Could deal with less of the warm. Would prefer us to kind of get back into the flow of it being a little cooler.
Oh man, it's second summer, humidity and all.
Yeah. And for those of you who have not been paying attention, weather-wise, there's a hurricane coming up through Baja California that's going to start curling our direction, and we're about to get some tropical rain over the next several days. So, but
Well, from what I remember, we're supposed to have a wet winter in general, right?
that's the rumor, if everything's accurate.
Maybe my grass will survive.
Yeah, maybe so. But I'm Rob White, class of 14.
And I'm Roy May, fighting Texas Aggie, class of 2015. Whoop.
Whoop. And apologies ahead of time if I sound a little sniffly or coffee on on this particular podcast. It's been a long weekend, and I've been slamming Mucinex and Dayquil, and insert whatever your drug of choice is. That's kind
Your
of been the case.
OTC drug of choice.
So, but yeah, despite all that, it was a pretty entertaining weekend. Despite the fact there was no Aggie football, there was plenty of other fun things going on for sure.
Well, and like we said, the bye week is always nice because it's your least stressful football week of the year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I watched the Army game, but I knew Army wasn't going to win. I didn't think it was going to quite that bad, but
Yeah.
by watch the Army game, I mean, I turned it on after about a drive and a half. I was like, probably not.
Yeah, that was not quite the result we were hoping for, but hey, at least LSU made a good play. I like what they did with the end zones for the game. That was pretty cool.
Well, and to respect an opponent is to not let off the gas, quite frankly.
No, absolutely. You're not wrong.
So they weren't wrong for scoring, was it 63?
Yeah, whatever.
That's just pure out talent. And it shows. And those are just two different worlds of talent, which maybe speaks more to Oklahoma those few years back. Maybe it shows the disparity in talent between a Big 12 power and an SEC, power. But hey, we're back in game week, though.
We are back in game week, and
the most hated rivalry, and for one of the most storied trophies in the history of college football, the Bonham Trophy.
Yeah, getting ready to play those bastards from South Carolina, as everybody on Twitter loves to say.
That's the extent of my energy for this quote unquote rivalry. It's what is it, 8-1 since we started the SEC.
Yeah, and it took our worst season in the last 12, 13 years for them to actually do it.
Well, it can be very difficult when you give up like 10 or 17 points in the first 5 or 6 minutes. Wasn't that what it was? Something like that.
It was ridiculous. I remember we were getting ready to play a gig, I think. And I was keeping up with it early. I'm like, holy crap. It was like they were up 17-0 immediately or whatever it was. And I was like, I will give our guys a lot of credit because they fought back, but don't spot them 17 points to start the damn game.
Yeah, generally try not to let people run the opening kickoff back. That's especially on the road. But again, last year's what it is. This year you've got a struggling South Carolina team. They dropped 3 straight. This is their last road game of the year. So, I mean, good for them, I guess. They get to play the rest at home, or I don't know if they play. I guess they must get Clemson at home because they don't play that in a neutral site. So, but yeah, South Carolina's reeling. So are we, but our reeling is based off of losses to 2 of the better teams in the SEC.
Well, and we definitely saw that this weekend. Tennessee gave Alabama a pretty decent fight on the road. Just kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter, but
just crumbled. Absolutely fell apart. But that's not just Tennessee falling apart, though. You have to give credit to Alabama. You can try and give the game away, but the other team still got to try. Other teams still got to take it. So, Alabama. I was listening to radio earlier this morning. They were talking about, is this one of the best, if not the best, coaching jobs that Nick Saban has done so far? I mean, he's got a team that everybody thought was going to be doo-doo. Loses to Texas at home. And then like struggles against Central Florida or whatever directional Florida they played.
Yeah.
And so, and again, it was there for the taking, like we've been saying. But yeah, I mean, if he ends up in Atlanta playing Georgia, I think, and especially if he ends up winning the SEC with the team that I think most people across the country are like, wow, this is the worst Bama team we've seen in years. If he pulls that off, this got to be one of his better coaching jobs.
I don't disagree with you one little bit. I mean, if there's any one thing, I remember we were saying, especially early in the season, how their struggles definitely opened the door for us. But frankly, Saban's done a phenomenal job, and he's continued to prove that he is Nick Saban. And
Yeah, yeah.
the fact is, your teams have continually gotten better from week to week. So, I'm not, and Georgia at times this year has not looked as dominant. Yes, they've won games, but they haven't been the most dominant wins. And it's a very real possibility that Atlanta could be a very interesting game.
Well, and you're also about to see a whole different Georgia team without Brock Bowers,
Yeah.
who's one of the best players in the country. And if I mean, I don't know that necessarily he deserves to win, but I mean that dude, without the injury, obviously, because now it changes everything. But I mean that dude was easily on the way to get an invite to New York for the Heisman ceremony. I mean, he's just that dominant of a player. He reminds me of a Gronk or a Kelsey. He's so special out there, split out wide.
Yeah.
Well, and what he does when he's tucked in, with the line as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know how the SEC is gonna pan out. To be honest, I think with Alabama surging, which I think is maybe a good way to put it,
Yeah.
it could be really interesting. Obviously, they still got to play LSU, but which will pretty much decide the West, obviously, unless there's just a massive amount of stupid results
Hmm.
because we already blew our chance. We're going to get South Carolina. I don't think Shane Beamer's ever lost 4 straight games. So, and they've lost 3 in a row. But
Yeah.
South Carolina also has never beaten us here in Kyle Field.
No.
An 11 a.m. kickoff generally favors the visitors. I feel like, but I don't know. I don't think an 11 a.m. kickoff really favors anybody. Maybe the visitors just because the fans aren't quite as amped up, but we don't always really have that problem at Kyle Field, no matter when the kickoff is.
No, students are still going to be there, and they're still
Yeah,
going to be loud.
and that's still going to be our defense out on the field against a very incredibly struggling, increasingly struggling offense. Their offensive line is doo doo, which is a really bad matchup considering what we have in the front 4 and the front 7.
Yeah.
I
Honestly,
mean,
looking at their stats here, on the defensive side of the ball, their biggest struggle has absolutely been giving up the pass. I mean,
mhm.
they're giving up over 300 yards of offense a game on the defensive side of the ball, just in the passing game.
Yeah, and Rattler's just on one side of the ball, and Rattler. Rattler's talented, but I mean, he's going to be
Sure.
running for his life. So it really doesn't matter how talented you are when, I mean, this could be a violent game for him, to be honest.
Hmm.
Through no fault of his own, I might add. But you've got a team that struggles on the offensive side to basically provide protection, which I think we can kind of understand a little bit. But
Hmm.
the level that they're at is a whole lot different of misery. I mean, um, so I mean, I like this game going away, and I
Yeah.
know that it's hard to sit here and say that, and you'll hear the pushback. And well, how can you say that? What's shown you in the last 2 games? Well, I've also watched South Carolina, and
Yeah.
so quite frankly, that has a lot to do with it.
Oh,
And
there's big disparity in opponents compared to the last two that we faced and who we're getting ready to face. South Carolina is not a good football team. They have shown over the course of this season that they've been able to struggle quite a bit. And at this point, A&M kicking off as a 14-point favorite right now at home.
yeah, I think the
So
lowest I saw was 13 and a half. And I mean, it, again, you start talking about talent disparities, right? When we first
yeah.
got in the league, we understood the talent disparity, between certain tiers of the SEC. And while our record may not be great right now, there's a legitimate talent disparity between our roster and South Carolina's roster.
Hmm.
And you put all that together, they're on a 3-game skid. We had a bye week, which hopefully, and I know that in press conferences you're going to get a lot of kind of coach type speak out of the kids, but I feel like some of the stuff I heard from the kids in the press conference was real genuine.
Hmm.
And they understand where they're at and they understand what they need to do to finish out the season.
Yeah.
And this is your opportunity. You got South Carolina at home, 11 a.m. Just dust the floor with them. Go cover the spread. I don't care what
Hmm.
that point total ends up being. Go cover the spread. If that's 14 to nothing, you know,
Cover the
um,
spread.
yeah, shut them out. That'd be a great sign too, right?
I'd be all about that.
And then
If
and depending on that, on that prefer. Yeah, I mean, do you want to win 44-30? Like, do you want to give up 30 points to South Carolina? I mean, how
Mm,
good how I mean, you'll feel great about putting up 44 because that's not exactly what we do either. But I'd love to see like a 21-3, 21-7, 28-7 kind of game. Um, just because again, it's hard to expect our offense to go out and put up 35 plus points with what we've seen. And I get that, but you also have to remember that what our defense has done to like far superior offenses the last few games.
mm,
I think that should tell you. And not to mention, South Carolina's got a lot of injuries. I
yeah.
saw they've got a handful of dudes that are questionable.
Mm,
And again, questionable. Who knows if that means they're going to play? Who knows if that means they're out for the year?
mm,
Every college coach is a little bit different on how they disclose injuries and what they actually mean, as opposed to what they actually say.
mm,
But the two guys you're gonna look for are gonna be Harbor, their wide receiver, who hasn't put up like record breaking stats, but he's like he can do some damage.
mm.
Um, and then what's his name? Debo Williams. I know it's Debo.
Yeah,
I think it's Debo Williams. He's steady on
yeah,
defense. Double digit tackles, pressures, hurries. So those are really the two you got to account for. And if Max Wright is to be believed, talking about how all the offensive line truly worked on was their communication to improve blocking, then maybe you like your chances
maybe. I
to
mean,
to keep Max's uniform nice and clean.
yeah. And I think if we can, for me, I think a successful game, let's not allow for any sacks and certainly cut down on the pressures. If we can cut down on the amount of pressures our quarterback is going to be receiving, your opportunities for your playmakers to actually make plays increases just exponentially. So let's do that. Novel thought. Let's play some O line and actually do some blocking.
Right, and especially for a quarterback that we talked about, it's just a touch slower with decision making. So just if
Sure.
you can give him that touch more time, though, if he's going to wait for receivers to be open, that's fine. If that's what he's going to do, I'd love to see him start throwing them open. But again, that's not something you just in a bye week are able to teach someone.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I get that there's going to be plenty of naysayers. They're like, why would you have any confidence? What have you seen? I've seen a lot of talent on the football field, and I've seen a defense that can stop really good offenses, and we're about to play a not really good offense. So
Exactly.
you got to feel good about this one. It's a get right, and quite frankly, for this game, let's play at 11 a.m. Let's get it the hell out of the way, and just start looking at it and looking toward the Ole Miss.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my brain is as far as Saturday's concerned. And I'm not gonna sit here and we're not gonna look ahead to Ole Miss by any means, but
Mhm.
we can go over a couple of games that we saw this past weekend, like that abomination in Fayetteville.
Yeah. That man, and yeah, the type of performance that gets an OC fired, that's the type of performance that you definitely saw. I mean, well, the final score 7-3.
7-3, and against Mississippi State. South Carolina's last win was against Mississippi State. All right, so if that tells you, yeah. All right, and another fun thing I saw was South Carolina. The last time they covered the spread was against Georgia, and and that seems crazy because it's against Georgia, and then I realized that the spread was almost 28 points, and
Yeah.
it's like 28 points is a big line in conference. It really is.
Yeah. If you're struggling to get 28 points against a team, that really does tell you offensively where people see you. Granted, you were able to cover, but I would say at this point, the most important thing we can do is obviously cover our spread, take care of business. And you got to like our chances coming off of a bye week and our chances to refocus against an opponent that frankly is not on the same level as the last two we faced.
No, they're not. No. Gosh, we talk about the tiers of the SEC.
Mm.
They're not in the tier behind them. They're a tier behind that, or maybe even another.
I mean,
South
there's,
Carolina's just not very good this year. I mean, that's all there is to it.
yeah.
And I feel like I like Shane Beamer,
Mm.
but he's going to have to do something more than just pull a Spencer Rattler out of the portal, rabbit hat. He's going to have to go get some line players
Mm-hmm.
because their line is like how Rattler hasn't missed 2 or 3 games to begin with at this point. I have no idea because he's basically running for his life.
Yeah.
But it's nothing is as shocking as the offensive line play I saw at Arkansas on Saturday. I don't
Yeah.
know that I've seen worse offensive line play. And there's going to be some, self-loathing Aggies and be like, well, have you seen us play? No, bro. How they played against a Mississippi State defense, that
Yeah.
like they are like they should make the offensive lineman leave with the offensive coordinator. Like it was
Mhm.
that bad.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think. Ohio State, they almost feel inevitable in the Big Ten, but it'll come down to them in Michigan, just like it basically does. Penn State's right there on the cusp, and they're going to stay right there on the cusp, just like they always do.
Oh yeah.
Trying to think of the other games. I don't have the scores pulled up, but obviously the Alabama Tennessee game was great. The Ole Miss game. I was really surprised with, and that's why I'll be excited to talk next week about Ole Miss coming up as an opponent, just because I think it's an intriguing game all of a sudden.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it certainly could be. You're
what
not
we're
wrong.
seeing at Ole Miss.
One game that really did kind of shock me on the final. I mean, Virginia coming up and getting North Carolina.
Oh,
Whew.
yeah, the fighting Mac Browns getting bit by a team that should. I didn't know if Virginia was on track to win enough wins to, pull a glove off my hand.
No, and
Yeah, that was probably the biggest shocker.
I would say
Um,
so.
but U of H's almost pulled off a pretty big shocker.
Yeah, and I don't need to hear any Texas fans complaining about the refs at this point after that particular call. But yeah, that's part of the game flow, right? There's
if
always
you're only
calls.
if you're only listening to the podcast and you're not watching the video, I just gave one of the biggest eye rolls ever. That was one of the worst spots I've ever seen in my entire life.
It was
But
pretty horrid.
But well, Texas is in for it. Moving forward, Quinn Ewers got an AC sprain, AC joint sprain. So we're going to see what Malik Murphy can do, and that honestly that might tank their season.
It might.
But yeah, so they'll be interesting to keep an eye on. Looks like OU struggled a little bit with UCF, but they were able to put them away. I did watch a good bit of that game. Yeah, it was nice. I just kept flipping around because I didn't care what I was watching. It was great.
Well, and one more game I wanted to look at, and that was Duke and Florida State. Give Duke a lot of credit. They stayed in that game for a long time. The fourth quarter, just Florida State put it on them late. But once again, Elko with Duke fighting against one of the better teams. In fact, a current playoff favorite to at least make it, in Florida State.
Well, and that's where again we talked about a couple other games. It's just there's a roster talent discrepancy. That's and I get that. That's why you play the games. You never know, but it comes down sometimes. So you get in that fourth quarter, especially late in the fourth quarter, and the physical talent gap wears the other team down. Like it's just it almost becomes too much, and that's where these more talented rosters and more talented teams, they can just wear you down, and they wear you down and wear you down. And by the time it gets near the end of the game, it can be too much and it can be overwhelming, even if that means, you only lose by a game-winning field goal as the clock runs out. But they wear you down, and you run out of, that real energy, and fake energy only gets you so far. Fake motivation will get you far, but fake energy doesn't.
Yeah, it certainly does not. So
it'll be tip of the cap.
Oh, no question. I was very, very proud of the effort that they were able to plug in for that game. But
it's easy to root for Mike Elko.
Oh yeah, great guy, and obviously we love him, so nothing wrong with that. But man,
doesn't matter if we love him. Jimbo's going to be back next year, so it doesn't matter how much we love anybody right now.
It's very true. I highly doubt Jimbo's going anywhere unless he just tanks the rest of the season.
I'm sure there is a scenario.
There is a scenario, but the way things are shaking out with the rest of the schedule, I just don't see how you fire him this year. There's just not a lot of room for it.
He'd literally have to lose out.
Yeah, which I don't see happening.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the only way I could see it happening is for him to pretty much lose out.
Yeah, and I highly doubt that takes place. But a little bit closer to home, here in Texas, we do have ourselves a very exciting couple of games taking place today between the Astros and the Rangers, and of course the Diamondbacks and the Phillies. Those two could potentially be set today.
Yeah, ours is going to be set either way.
Yeah, either way. The Lone Star series is wrapping up its final game, and it couldn't be a more exciting finish with Christian Javier and Max Scherzer on the mound. Should be a really interesting ball game.
Well, but the Rangers are going to win because they're the away team. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's the weirdest thing. And I don't know what the explanation for it is, but the Astros home record has just been abysmal and I don't get it.
I saw something interesting, and I hopefully I'm quoting this correctly. If the Rangers end up winning and going to the World Series, it'll be the first time in any major sport ever in a seven-game series that the away team won all the games to advance.
Yeah, to advance. And unfortunately, that's the exact same situation that we saw with the Astros and the Nationals back in 2019 during that World Series. It was the same deal. Away team just dominated on the road. It was weird.
Silly talk.
It's silly talk, but I'm excited for it. And, regardless of the final score at the end of the night tonight, I mean, how great for the state of Texas.
Win 7 games, man. I think you can ask for
Right.
much more.
No, you can't ask for much more. And they've all been pretty exciting games. There really weren't any major blowouts. Yeah, I know last night, yeah, the grand slam late, but let's be honest, that was a very tight ball game in the bottom of the eighth.
Yeah, it was. My only complaint is they're going to be without Abreu tonight. It's that entire situation. I think it's complete garbage and trash. The fact that he got suspended for throwing at somebody when he wasn't throwing at him, I think it's completely ridiculous, and there's nobody that can tell me otherwise. These are professionals, and they were still in a situation with a tight game. At no point are you going to bean a dude to put 2 guys on with no outs.
No, and that is certainly something that a lot of people are arguing back and forth on the internet. And at the end of the day, for me, it's like you look at that situation and where's the justification of putting a guy on because, oh, I'm pissed off that he showed up after a home run. That's what you do. And not a single fan that I've talked to on the Astros side had a problem with his celebration.
No, I don't
None of
care
us.
about. I don't care about him pimping a home run. That's just the thing
No,
these days.
that's what you do. And you saw, and there was a bit of disparity. It was a great video I saw, but it was Garcia's home run and his reaction versus Altuve's home run and his reaction in the same
Well, yeah.
game. And Garcia took by the time Altuve was rounding second base, he was finally putting the bat down.
Yeah, but that's what you see in baseball now, and you
Yeah.
only see it at every level just because these kids emulate the superstars that they see, and
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, the players don't really care that much. If
No.
you turn around, and you yell at a dugout, that's a little bit different. But you're yelling at your own dugout, you're spiking the bat, you just parked one.
Mm-hmm.
The players don't care near as much as the fans do. My
No.
biggest problem is they both got ejected. If one of them is going to get suspended, the other one should get suspended as well. Because first of all, I don't remember the last time in any like in any sport, and not just like when they're talking or this and that, but when there's like aggression and you put your hands on an umpire or a ref or an official, that's it, guy.
Yep. Every single
So,
time.
so the fact that, I mean, I think I heard right that the appeal came back and he got a 1 game, which means he's out, right?
Allegedly so.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen the full
I mean, I know
story on it,
they're
but
going to make a decision before the game tonight. So it's just, if you're going to suspend one, you got to suspend the other because you're not suspending him for the same reasons, but you're suspending Garcia for the way he reacted, went after Maldonado, and put his hands basically on an umpire.
yeah.
Like pick one or the other. If you want to suspend them both, then you know what, I'd be fine with that. If you want to spend neither of them, I'd be fine with that too. I'm not calling for Garcia's head. I'm saying I'm calling for at least some common sense, which again is never as common as we would like it to be.
Yeah, it's very true.
That's my take on the situation. And no way are you putting 2 on with no outs in a 2-run game. No way, no how, not happening. If you was, it's asinine to think otherwise. But I know that fans are passionate people. But my biggest thing is there's just no way that was intentional. I can't in a million years imagine that. And even the players have come out and said, they're like, we don't care about people pimping their home runs. Like we just that doesn't bother us. Because I think they understand if you don't want them to do it, don't let them do it.
Yeah, that's always been my thing. It doesn't. You don't like them celebrating after a home run, strike the guy out, get him out.
Quit throwing meatballs right down the
Yeah,
pipe.
don't do that. It's kind of a novel thought. But going into this final, one way or the other, we're going to have a winner. And if the Rangers pull it out tonight, congratulations to any of our Rangers people that might be on there and listening in on the podcast. And if you're one of the Astros people, let's go, baby. Rock and roll.
Let's go Stros.
It doesn't matter.
I honestly though, I think this going to 7 games is just so perfect. I think what they say, they have the exact same record right now. And so why wouldn't this go to 7 games?
It's kind of poetic for the state of Texas for sure.
Yeah, so it's been a great series, both as a fan of the team and one of the teams, and then also just kind of a fan of baseball. I think an I-45 series is just really cool. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's been a lot of fun. And both managers are going to throw the kitchen sink. I guess we'll just see where the chips fall.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm doing steak and twice baked potatoes tonight, so I'm trying not to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I found out last night that it really just doesn't affect me as much
Yeah.
anymore. So it's enjoyable to watch. And if they don't win, I still have a job. So
Right.
like
You still have a job. I still have things I got to do. And, I've been pretty good on the Twitter machine, not really getting after people or talking any crap because, it's been back and forth from everybody. And like the only response I've had for anybody throughout this whole deal, and it was kind of a perfect one. It was today. There was a guy and he was like, Aggies don't lie, cheat, or steal, nor tolerate those who do. And they posted a picture of Altuve. Like, you posted the guy that didn't participate, but whatever. And they
well,
said, well, he tolerated it. And I'm like, congratulations. You have Max Scherzer on your team
yeah,
and you tolerate that. So
there's not a single baseball fan that should ever talk about another team cheating. The entire sport is built around cheating.
it is.
And I love baseball. I
I
love it.
love baseball too. It's one of the funniest things because people talk about the purity of the sport. This sport lives in impurity. Black Sox scandal. It doesn't matter. You're talking about cork and bats. We're talking
George Brett Pine Tar.
pine tar. Let's talk steroids. Let's talk sign stealing. You want to go down the laundry list of how many transgressions have taken place in baseball? The Astros was rather minor in the grand scheme of things.
Spitballs.
you know, it doesn't matter.
Bardol.
Well,
Stuff a little jalapeno pepper up my nose.
yeah, you you put
on the
snot
ball.
on the ball.
I haven't got an arm like yours, kid.
If you haven't seen Major League,
Oh.
actually, you know what? All right,
Then you probably don't understand anything we've been talking about for the last 5 minutes, anyways.
for our YouTube people.
Oh, nice.
For our YouTube people,
Hey,
remember,
bartender, Joe Boo needs a refill.
it's
I
very
wouldn't leave
bad.
that-
It's very bad.
Wouldn't leave that rum sitting around here with this group, man. It's very bad to take Joe Boo's rum.
It's very bad.
But again, I think, dude, going to Game 7, it's perfect. Why not? Both teams have played so well all year. It's been fun how up and down it's been.
Yeah.
But yeah, it all ends tonight for one team or the other, and that's all there is to it. There's, that's it. So I do want to touch a little bit on a couple of games coming up this weekend in college football.
Yeah.
And then as you know, we don't really touch much on pro football because on the NFL.
Sure.
It's so boring and predictable and like whatever.
Well, but come on, man. We need to hear about everything going on with Taylor Swift all the time.
Well, I will tell you that the Dixie Chicken Hawks are well on their way to another victory this weekend. So, in the world of in the only real football that matters, fantasy football, the Dixie Chicken Hawks are doing well.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear.
Little bounce back couple of weeks, but there's just a few games I want to touch on coming up this week. It's not a loaded slate per se, but one, you have the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Georgia, Florida. It's one of my favorite ones. One of my favorite longtime rivalries. It's Florida's rebounded. They're sitting at 5-2, man. Georgia's looked okay. Georgia doesn't have Brock Bowers. That's not to say that they don't have maybe somebody that randomly emerges who's second or third string tight end who's a lot like him, right? Because the best teams have depth. So I always look forward to that game. I love it. I love the rivalry. I'll watch it as long as the game's still within reach from one team or the other.
Yeah.
BYU, Texas. It's Texas' old nemesis, BYU, running around over, under, and through. And so but that's going to be a good one to watch. I know. Thank you very much.
That was a good reference.
Just normal men.
Just innocent men. 2 weeks in a row.
Just innocent men. But again, you got a Texas team at home against a 5-2 BYU team, and Texas. They've no Quinn Ewers. So this is your first game where you're going to see Malik Murphy. And if he doesn't play well, watch out real fast for the cries for Arch Manning. They're going to come hard and fast.
Yep.
So I thought that one's just kind of intriguing to keep an eye on kind of thing. Duke has a chance to rebound against Louisville, which I could see them doing.
Hmm.
Uh, but I say again, it's not a loaded slate this weekend. But those were the few I wanted to touch on. And
Yeah.
then another good rivalry is Tennessee Kentucky. Um,
Yeah.
that'll be interesting to see if Tennessee can bounce back after kind of again just crumbling, to Alabama.
Yeah.
Um, but the rest of it's just kind of whatever games.
Yeah.
Unless Vanderbilt goes into Oxford and beats them, in which case it would be our luck that would happen because that would mean Ole Miss would probably fall out of the rankings, and then we still wouldn't have a ranked win on the road.
Well, and then on top of that, there's nothing quite like a kick up the ass than losing to an opponent you're not supposed to lose to. Then turn
Oh
around that next
yeah,
week and be like, okay, we're not losing this one. That's about the last thing I want is to deal with
yeah,
that. So,
yeah. But yeah, those were kind of the only games I had on my radar. I mean, maybe keep an eye on Ohio State going to Wisconsin, just
mhm,
because crazy things happen in Madison.
yeah.
It'll be a night game up there. But Oklahoma, Ohio State's 2 touchdown favorites, like our game. So, but it's just kind of one of those weird things happen at night in Madison kind of things. I'm not expecting Wisconsin to win, but it wouldn't shock me if they randomly just beat Ohio State for absolutely no reason, kind of thing.
Yeah, Wisconsin, anytime you're up there and you're having to bounce and jump around, it's
That is
always pretty
it's a
entertaining.
bucket list. That's a
It is a
bucket list.
bucket list.
Yeah.
There's a handful of games that over the next several years, if we announced for our home and home splits, that I would be way okay with. Wisconsin is up there.
Well,
Uh,
as long as it's early in the year, I ain't going up to Wisconsin in November.
and it would be early, so it would
Yeah,
probably be September, and I would be all about that.
that would be perfect.
Doing a home and home. In fact, getting ready for a couple of home and homes coming up next year, and the year after with Notre Dame.
I was gonna
I
say
am,
Notre Dame's next one. Yeah,
I'm excited for those. So we got plenty of great things to look forward to on
we
that.
do. But then the other catch is how many of those do we keep and we go to a 9 game schedule?
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
I hope,
Who
hopefully,
knows?
I think they just stick with it and the understanding, a bit more like college basketball. Like you really understand that you do need to, you got to have at least one series out of conference, like at least one. So hopefully, you're still able to maintain some of the stuff that they've agreed to with the home and homes.
Well,
Yeah, Wisconsin be a good one. Michigan,
Penn State.
yeah, Penn State be a good one. We've done VTech, we've done Miami. I'm not a big fan of going out west, honestly. Um,
I know we have a series with Arizona State coming up, which should be fine. But I mean, I wouldn't mind playing the likes of USC or maybe even Oregon or
Oregon,
Washington. Yeah,
Oregon would be fun, I guess.
yeah,
I have no desire for USC.
yeah,
Honestly, most of it just comes out of the ACC and the Big Ten. Um,
yeah,
and the ACC is more just for the opponent.
yeah,
I think scheduling Clemson is never a bad idea as long as Clemson can stay where they are.
yeah,
Florida State be another good one.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, yes,
I'd
yeah, just
I'd be about that.
yeah.
And you've
New
already
UNC.
UNC would be
Yeah,
good. Virginia Tech again. I know we did a series with them back in the 2000s, but
yep,
yeah, those are a ton of great opportunities. So
yeah.
get
And
behind that.
even a random on like Maryland, because I'll tell you what, like if you've never been to a college football weekend in College Park,
They
it
have
is
fun.
entertaining. I would just highly advise you hydrate beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets a little warm. You're not wrong. And
Yes,
lots of
it
alcohol.
gets a little boozy, is
Get
what
a
it
little
gets.
boozy.
Yeah, that's
So
with a Z. It's not bougie. It is most decidedly not
easy.
bougie in College Park,
No.
but it's a ton of fun.
Yeah. So I believe you had a book that you wanted to talk about,
Yes,
right?
so I have a random topic of the week kind of thing,
Okay.
which we don't always have. So random topic of this week. Okay, so don't
Mhm.
expect us to have one every week. But so I went to American Warrior Initiative. It was the continued education class actually for realtors. Had to deal with working with VA loans, working with our veterans, understanding the veterans kind of GI Bill rights as it pertains to real estate. But they had a keynote speaker, and the guy's name is Jason Redman, and he's a former Navy SEAL. He's got a couple of books, but he was the keynote speaker. And just like real brief about him, he was a team leader in Iraq. They got caught in an ambush on a night mission. They were going after a high value target, and they went and got dropped in. They cleared a building, and it turns out the guy was in the next building, and so they went to patrol basically over to the next building, and they got caught in like a perfectly set up ambush. And if you know anything about an ambush, where you end, like if you're setting up an ambush, where you want them is on the X. That's kind of what that's what you call as being on the X.
Mhm.
Well, it turns out his team got caught on the X. He had a bullet. He got shot 8 times. Got a bullet, ripped through his arm, almost took it off. He got shot. It went in below his ear, came out just below his eye. Yeah, and this guy's, and he's had 40 some odd reconstructive surgeries. But he talks about you've got to find a way in life. It's about overcoming adversity. I'll hold it up for the YouTube guys. The book is cool. Let me see if I can get it to stop blurring. Of course, it's not going to.
Right,
Maybe
right in
right
front of your face.
next
There
to
you
my
go.
face. There we go. So it's called Overcome, by Jason Redman, and he's got another book called Trident, and that's a little bit more specific of telling the military stories as a book. This one references kind of hardships in military, but he ties it to adversity in life, and he just talks about how you don't have to be in the military and have a rifle to get caught in an ambush. Life has ambushes, and it can be emotional, they can be professional, they can be personal. Just things happen that you're not prepared for, and it's how you get off that X is the only way that you can start moving forward and getting back on track and being that successful person. And getting off that X also helps you as a person, knowing that you were able to get off that X. Now, in his point, it was very quite literally, he was on the X. And his team was able to fight back, and they were able to call in a gunship. These aren't spoilers by any means. It's
Mhm.
pretty early in the book when he talks about this, but calling a gunship, somehow, and the doctor said later they had no idea how he did it, but a buddy came to get him and like picked him up, and apparently he helped him, but basically walk under his own strength. He'd sat there for almost 30 minutes bleeding. Like, the dude needed four units of blood. Generally you have 8 to 12 run through your body at any time.
Yeah.
So, like,
So.
half to a third of it was basically laying on the desert sand in Iraq.
Yeah.
And but he talks about that adversity. He talks a little bit about being in buds, but it's just him talking about getting off that X in life. And it's one of it's a very motivating book, but he's also very on the just he hits the nail on the head, but he's really on the nose about some things. He doesn't pull any punches.
Mhm.
He talks about, if you're not getting off the X, you're either this person or you're that person. And quite frankly, that's just all it is. So if
Mhm.
you need to identify which one of those you are, and you need to start fixing things to get off that X, and having these ambushes in life, whether it's, again, professional or personal, and like latching yourself to them, and you're almost using that as an excuse to not continue moving forward, or you're getting off that X. So just kind of like, I guess this is somewhat of a book review.
Mhm.
But it's Jason Redman. Again, the book is called Overcome. It's fantastic. If you're going through something, it'll be on the nose, but it's great. But if you're not going through something, life is always going to ambush you.
Mhm.
Always. Like, just, there is no life without adversity. Um, and so I highly recommend the book. It's a great read. It's a pretty easy read too. Like, it's
Mhm.
not anything crazy. But if you're struggling with something, or you just kind of want to have a better mindset for when something comes along that's might make you struggle, I highly, highly recommend Overcome by Jason Redman. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. I got to meet him, super amazing guy. Obviously, a story it's unreal,
Mhm.
quite frankly. It's just unbelievable what he's had to overcome. But yeah, so that's kind of my little random topic for the week. So
Awesome.
if you're looking for a book to read that's not fiction by any means,
Mhm.
um, yeah, check out Jason Redman. Try his other book, Trident's, on my next, on my list next, just because I like war stories.
Yeah. Hey, nothing wrong with war stories. They're exciting, man. So,
And Outlaw Platoon's another good book if you've not read that.
okay.
It's not Jason Redman, but it's called Outlaw Platoons by Sean Parnell. It's a
Awesome.
great, great book.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So, how was the rest of your week? Anything
Week was
exciting?
good. It was a really hectic week. I got to Friday and I just realized that, like, I'd been going nonstop since I woke up Monday morning, and it was just it's just a lot of week, man. And it's just
Mhm.
one of those where I got so busy I didn't realize how busy I was until I had time to not be busy. Friday afternoon, I got home, I changed, put on shorts and a t-shirt, my flip-flops, I sat down and I was like, holy crap, I could take a nap.
Mhm.
So but it's good. It was a good productive week. And I started off this week. I had closing this morning and some walkthroughs and that kind of stuff. So it's, another week off to a bang. Busy, but off to a bang.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but the weekend again was for the most part low stress. I had some work to do, but it wasn't super high tempo or high paced.
Yeah.
Just kind of standard weekend realtor stuff.
Mhm.
But and then, yeah, just starting off this week with a bang, man. What'd you guys do this weekend?
So we were out at Floors Country Store in Helotes,
That's right.
and it was a really cool experience. We played out there in front of 1,500 people, which is always a good deal. And big spot. It was definitely odd as far as the crowd because our normal Floors crowd, we run across kind of the same people all over Central Texas, whether we're
Mhm.
playing up in New Braunfels or we're all the way down in San Antonio, heck, sometimes all the way on the north side of Austin. We run across the same people at all of those shows, which is cool to see. But
It's
there
because
was
they're traveling for y'all.
no, they travel for us and they love to travel for us and a lot of other bands too. And it's cool to see those type of people. But so many of them were not there this week because it was a rather large concert over just outside of College Station over there in Snook. For anybody that had to deal with this particular deal, it was the At the Station
Oh
Festival. And
boy.
all I will say about it is it seemed extremely hectic and frankly, at least in my humble opinion, they should have done a lot more on the logistical side, understanding what they were getting themselves into. Because having been out at the same spot that they hosted, which is Chili Fest, we went out there earlier this year and we played in front of 10,000 people, and there was 10,000 a day out there. And I remember getting out there and thinking, whew, that was a stressful deal. And you're going to put an additional 24,000 people out there for one show.
And I bet the same amount of like administrative and security. I bet you that they didn't increase it at all.
No, and in fact, it looked like there was less. And I think it's probably because a lot of the folks that might have been up there at the top weren't really anticipating what they were getting themselves into, especially for a first year festival. And the main headliner you're bringing in, Zach Bryan, that's a big name, unfortunately, for the logistical side of things. I mean, it's cool that you were able to put 34,000 people out there, but that's just an insane number.
Well, it just you're doing that with no preparation. This is literally what it sounds like
Yeah,
happened.
limited preparation. And if you go on to Facebook and you go through the comments from people and some of their experiences,
Yeah.
it wasn't Woodstock 99, but it was still very, it could have been done better.
Well, the early reports I saw, there were some people that never even got in,
Oh, I wouldn't be
and,
shocked.
and they ran out of water. And
Yep, and they had limited facilities for people, a bunch of crazy stuff. So I don't
I
know.
wonder if maybe the venue, instead of using like what they've normally used, because this sounds familiar. I wonder if they just subbed it out to Levy.
Anything's possible. I don't know for sure.
Water running out, people not getting in the gates. Sounds familiar. Just go to
Yeah,
Levy. Bet you they have plenty of old popcorn.
So anyway, so because of that concert, a lot of our normal crowd wasn't really there. It was a lot of Muscadine Bloodlines fans, and Muscadine Bloodline, obviously their show, their headline, and they draw a great crowd in their own right. Pretty solid band size wise. In terms of Spotify numbers, they're like 3.7 million monthly listeners. Now that's a little less than Zach Bryan's almost 30 million, but it's a good sized band and a good sized act. So we played in front of a bunch of Muscadine's fans, and they didn't necessarily know who we were. A few people in the crowd obviously did, but there were a lot of people that were educated about us
That's
over the
good though.
course of that
That's
day.
a great opportunity.
Well, and the beauty of it was their camp, those guys are some of the nicest people we work with, and that's not a normal thing across the scene. You do come across a lot of camps, some of which they operate, and they're very much, we keep to ourselves. So we're not really worried about openers. We just need to take care of our own stuff. And generally, with those situations, as an opening band, your job is to get on stage, take care of your business, get off as fast as you can, stay out of the way.
You kind of know your role.
Yeah, know your role. And we generally do that with virtually every band that we come across. We want to just stay out of the way. Now, if they encourage us to talk and get in with things, yeah, it's cool. So there's two lead singers. They have co frontmen in this band. And one of them, his name's Gary. Gary reached out to Carson and before we even got there and said, "Hey, any chance you could bring a roping dummy and teach us how to rope?" So We actually ended up pulling off and stopped in Seguin, went to the shop, got some ropes, got a dummy, and we went out there and showed him the ropes. Pun absolutely intended, but it was cool. It was a fun experience to get to hang out with those guys. They had nothing but great things to say to us. Made it a point to say, anytime we can get you guys on for a show, we want it because you guys know what you're doing. It's
That's
quickly,
cool.
yeah, that is cool. So, and riding opportunities with Carson. Plus, there's a really good probability we're going to be working with those guys a lot. So, having that good first interaction, more or less a coming out party to come play with those guys. So that was cool. And on top of that, the fan reaction was particularly special because we did about $2,000 in merch. On a good night, we'd say if we hit 1,000, that's a good night. And we
Nice.
did, and we did, $2,000 worth in merch with a bunch of people who didn't know who we were before we got there. So that's a good sign.
Well, it's got to make you feel good. They like you enough to buy your stuff.
Exactly. So we got that going for us. Nothing going on this weekend with the band. It's my drummer's bachelor party, but from a personal standpoint, I did have a loss in the family this past week. For those who weren't keeping up, my grandmother, BB, my dad's mom, she had some health complications over the past weekend, and had a chance to talk with her last Monday night after we recorded, and we lost her on Tuesday morning. So we're going to be having her service in Carlsbad this week on Thursday. So
Heading on out of town.
heading on out of town tomorrow morning. I'm going to drive up there and get situated, get everything situationally figured out while we're there.
Right.
And
Right.
then we'll get on back down here, but it'll be good to see some family and friends. Wish it was under better circumstances, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's one of those things. Like the older I get, the more I hate that, when tragedy brings us together, like the first thing we always think about is, I don't know why we wait for this to be the thing that brings family together. It's just,
yeah.
I understand it, man.
But positives for her. She was around for Trent's wedding. She got to be in that, which was awesome. And she, lived a great life. Got to the age of 80, almost 81, and
Full life.
yeah, pretty full life. And now she's back with Daddy Jack, so things are good on that front. So
There you go.
yeah, so I got to take the positives with the negatives. So we're
Yes.
excited. We're excited at this point that she is no longer in pain and that there's no more suffering going on there, and she's doing well elsewhere. So that's important for us as our family unit. So looking forward to that um, opportunity to go hang out with our people and see them, and
Yeah.
then get on home after that. But yeah,
Right.
so uh hell might be back in town. We'll see how the situation shakes. Kind of back and forth on making my trek out to Oklahoma after the wedding, but we'll see how it all goes down.
Yeah.
So after the funeral.
At the
So
funeral. Yeah.
after the funeral, but as we kind of go into this next week, pretty excited. We'll be in Lubbock next week, and I'll highlight that, but then talk about our upcoming big run with Corey Kent when we get a little closer to that. So
Right
that'll be
on.
good. But
Yeah, same old for me. I'll have my Monday market update coming out later today.
cool.
Last week we did not get a Ribs Real Estate and Rambling put out. We had some severe technical, like SD card corruption issues.
Mm-hmm.
So I have lost all the video. So we're going to be putting out it's unfortunately going to be a little more podcast kind of type release
Mm-hmm.
just for a few weeks because we batch film. So, and there's just no way to be able to get everybody's schedules back online to refilm. But well,
Mm-hmm.
it just happens.
It'll be
But
what it'll be.
the material will still be there. The interview will still be there. So probably won't have to see me talking with my hands as much. So maybe that's a plus. Um, and when we get to the week where Gabe comes out, I'll just let you know that he actually 100% was shoving his face full of ribs the entire time. So he really he understood the assignment and leaned into it.
That's the
But
beauty of Gabe.
yeah,
So gotta love his positives as often as we can get.
yes. But
Love.
yeah, man, just firing through the week.
Mm-hmm.
Got a calendar full of not white space on my, so
Yeah.
from bounce around one place to another, just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
But oh yeah, I think I mentioned this. So we're past fall break, the new thing of
Mhm.
fall break.
Yep.
And my daughter's already decided she wants to change her major, so we're right on track for that. Perfect.
Hey,
Thank you so much. We're
mine,
excited
mine,
about
yeah,
that.
mine came. Let's see, mine really kicked in about halfway through my spring semester, my freshman year. But
Yeah, no, she's ahead of the curve.
yeah, a little ahead of the curve, which is that's
Yeah.
okay. What's she thinking?
If she had an answer for that, I'd be more supportive.
Okay, fair enough. Fair
We're
enough.
we're working through that.
Working through it. Okay,
Obviously she's not going to pull any triggers in the middle of a semester. So, and she addressed it early enough so she can talk about it in between semesters before she starts registering for classes.
fair enough. So the opportunities there. Well, if you haven't, be sure to follow us on the Instagram at this point. We have a handful of accounts for y'all to check out. Be sure to go check us out at RedAss Podcast. Shred Dirt Designs, if you wouldn't mind, that would make me very happy. Keep up with Roy and all his real estate stuff. Roy May Jr. on there. And of course, if you haven't already, be sure to go check out our new little side project, Fat Cactus. It's on there. We're getting ready to start really putting together a set list and getting some stuff going there. If you don't know what Fat Cactus is, go watch the last podcast. We went into depth on it. So be sure to go check it out. And yeah, we're excited for all that. But another good week, another great opportunity to get better and hopefully see the boys pull out a great win on Saturday and potentially a
Yeah.
big win tonight. So
Yeah. Two big games on the horizon tonight and Saturday. So
excited for it.
Words of the Grateful Dead. Just keep on trucking, man.
Keep on trucking. Thank you. Appreciate y'all listening. Gig 'em. Go Stros. Let's get it.
Ready to rain.